Formula 3 continues its story in round 5 of the season. It is time for qualifying, which sets the grid for both races this weekend. And this is going to be an exciting half hour to see who is going to be able to set the fastest time in laps off the limit around this Barcelona Catalunya circuit. And we're about to get the green light at the end of the pit lane with a circuit that right now is boiling. We've got the track temperature at 36.3 and then we've got the air temperature at 31.5. It is quite hot and quite the different conditions to what the drivers faced when it came to pre-season testing. They've already been out for practice earlier on, and it was practice that saw Rafa Kamara fastest once again. In the commentary box, my name is Omi, delighted to be with you for this Formula 3 session once more, and alongside me, looking forward to some Formula 3 laps to the limit, is Tom Cairns. Hi Tom.
Hello Omi. Grueling temperatures in Barcelona already as 30 Formula 3 drivers are about to battle it out for 2 championship points and the Aramco pole position award, which will be given to the driver who ends up fastest by the end of today's session. Who is people's picks for pole position? Do let us know in the live chat on YouTube, and we'll read out who you are rooting for in the session, or who you are predicting to get pole position. It feels on the back of what we saw in practice that Rafa Kamara is one of the favourites to go for pole position. He has taken pole on 3 occasions this season, including the first ever Aramco pole position award for Formula 3, which he picked up at Imola. With 3 pole positions this season in the championship in 2025, it's difficult to look past Kamara, isn't it, Omi?
Yeah, he looks back on form after what we saw in practice. He had the Monaco weekend where it didn't go to plan. I think that was the first reality check on in terms of how this entire season will not work out like we saw in the opening 2 rounds of our campaign. But he looks to be back in terms of his momentum. He's of course had the preseason testing, as have everyone, but it's given him time to get all up to speed and get everything back going and try get momentum back in this FIA Formula 3 Championship. One team that absolutely need it, Tom, is Prema Racing, who did not look the best in practice. They are going to need to try and be competitive in this qualifying session to be in contention, not only on just overtaking some cars here on this outlap. Prema, 7 times they've won Formula 3 races at Spain, and they want to look to continue that, but it's going to definitely take quite a lot of effort considering how they've been struggling so far this season.
Yes, they need a strong haul of points. Down at the bottom of the team's championship are Prema. It'll be interesting to know who will decide to do the alternate sort of strategy in this session, whether there'll be some cars going out in the gap compared to most of the others, because it is a short lap around here, relatively short, 4.6 kilometers, and if there's anything you don't want to see is drivers getting held up by traffic whilst completing their fast laps. Rafa Kamara just allowing what looked like Nicola Lacourt to go through there. And there we just see the MP Motorsport cars. You've got Tim Chumnitz, the Rebel Junior driver, waiting behind. Next to him is the Williams Academy driver, Sandro Giusti, and Bruno Del Pino, one of 2 home heroes this weekend, along with Mario Boya, who we believe is out on track already.
Absolutely. Glenn Woods, great to see them in the chat saying that anyone from Team Rodin is going to be taking pole position, so they are definitely suggesting that we are going to possibly be seeing Callum Woysen, Louis Sharp or Roman Bielinski get there. Plug is also in the chat, so a hello to him as well, as we get the outlaps going in this Formula 3 qualifying session with the push laps about to begin. Run 1 can be important, Tom. We can see later on in the session stuff like red flags come out, stuff like the yellow flags which can interrupt runs, and even on the evidence of what we had at Imola, this session of course can possibly, if we do get a few red flags, we could possibly see it being stopped early due to the scheduling that we have around this weekend. So it can mean that these first few laps can sometimes be important if it does get all a little bit too chaotic later on.
Well, just hope we don't get to that situation like what we saw at Imola a couple of weeks ago, where Formula 2 had to end its last 6 minutes prematurely because of the timing of the schedule, and with Formula 1 FP2 not being able to be shifted. So on that front, Formula 3 just need to make sure that no one does anything daft on circuit or make a mistake which could cause problems for others with a red flag situation. Rafa Kamara, we are riding on board as he goes through turns 3 and then 4. Look at all the traffic there. This is going to be a problem throughout the session because track position is going to be vital, and with 30 Formula 3 cars out on the track now, all of them are out on circuit, it's going to be very, very difficult to know who's going to have the pace and who isn't, or even who's going to have the track position and who isn't.
The Formula 3 mess continuing its story then, as the cars go 3 wide, very nearly 4 wide at certain points, as they all try and debate track position. Avoiding contact is critical for everyone in this field at this stage. You do not want to see your car being spun around, and with contact, if you do spin around, it can be hard to restart it at times. So it does mean that the drivers having to be careful, trying to get track position and trying to jostle it out at this stage. And that's what can cost drivers as well, Tom. Later on in this session, when we get down to those checkered flag moments, some drivers aren't able to begin another lap because they're all queuing in the 3rd sector. So they're all going to have to try avoid that. And that sometimes, if a driver just bolt forward and maybe go for a bit of a different strategy, they can avoid that mess and they can possibly get going, with not being involved in any of those queuing at the end, which costs drivers near the end.
Well, this is why the MP Motorsport team have left Tramnitz, GSD and Delpino behind this lot, because they know that when you get caught at the rear of the traffic, you lose tyre temperature, and you need all the tyre temperature available to get that push lap of which you want. You can see drivers have done their 2 recon laps or their 2 prep laps before starting their flying laps. Now we can just see Nicola Solov, Formula 3's most successful race winner in the championship, started his final flying lap for the session. Here is Rafa Kamara, fastest at the end of the practice session earlier this morning, heading through Repsol corner of turn 4. A slight kick of oversteer there, but nothing too major, as the gradient sort of drags you towards the outside before you have to switch back to the right-hand side to line the car up for turn 5.
Yep, Rafa Kamara pushing on then as GSD perfectly out of the way, and Kamara just trying to keep it together all over the road and having to get out of it momentarily. So that tells you how much Kamara is pushing. It was all out of shape through turn number 7 and 8 through that part of the circuit. Now he's attempting to get down to turn number 10 with absolute ease as he makes his way through. More drivers beginning lap times further back. Let's see whether Kamara can continue this one. He would have lost time in the middle sector. He's in the 3rd part of the lap. Tisana Polo into Pruvazak though has set the pace so far in that middle sector. Cars just out of the way. That was Bruno Delpino, which Kamara has just gone past. And then we're heading down to turn number 14. Big speed as he makes his way on the power. Once again sliding all over the pace for Kamara. The yellow flags are flying around this circuit as Kamara goes quickest of all.
Yeah, it's not a very good lap, in all honesty, from Rafa Kamara. He put a wheel on the yellow sausage curb at turn 7. The yellow flag has gone away from Swell, although it's come back actually. So we want to know what actually has been going on. It's gone green again. So it may have been someone putting a wheel in the gravel trap somewhere around the track. We are looking at one of the Rodin cars, remember, although we're looking now at Ugo Ugatrukru. He might have been the one to have made a mistake on the lap that he was on. We'll get a replay. Judging by the state of his tyres, it looks like he's gone through the gravel. You just see a flat spot on the front left. So I wonder if he's had a trip through the gravel trap, Amy.
Yeah, I think that could be the case, considering we've already seen the framers, his teammate Leon and Badoa also get their lap times on the board. So there is a possible chance then coming in that there was a moment, considering the teams usually run their cars together. That's exactly what MP Motorsport are doing, and Tim Traminit is only 1.5 tenths off the pace. Lawrence Van Hoopen goes to 6th, make that 7th, because his teammate James Wharton improves to the front row. Santiago Ramos, our brilliant winner of course from the feature race, goes to 4th position. Tuka Tappen and the Flying Finn goes to the top. Let's see what Tim Traminit can do as he comes out of the final corner now, stands on the power, not having to deal with the correction that Kamara had to earlier on, and he improves to 4th position. So decent time coming in for Tim Traminit.
Bruno Delpino over the line as well in the MP Motorsport, goes up to 7th place. Nicely done there by the home heroes. We look at Tuka Tappinen, fastest of them all, the Flying Finn, part of the Ferrari Academy as well, proving why he belongs there. Could we well see him on the Formula 1 grid in the near future? Tazin Topovicek up to second place as well in the Campos, doing a fine job. This is a replay then of Rafa Kamara as he heads through turn 7. And you can just see as he applies the throttle, the car just steps out, a kick of oversteer, throwing him onto the yellow sausage curve on the outside, but he was very lucky to keep it on the track. Unlike Charlie Wirtz, he was the one that caused the yellow flag, and so the Trident driver has left himself with more work to do than desired, so he'll hope that he doesn't make that same mistake again.
Yeah, Charlie Wirtz, of course, Kamara's teammate making his way to, and there we go, Ugo Gachukwu actually I think was the permanent cause of the yellow, because he was actually stationary, and he also lost the car in the Prema. But as we saw with Kamara, lots of corrections on the lap. Sometimes it works out, sometimes you are able to control the car, but other times it can be a spin round. So it's Tappinen, then it's into Pruvazak, Wharton, Kramnitz, Ramos, Kamara finds himself in 6th. A lot of work to do for him. Del Pino's in 7th, then it's Belinsky, Stenshorn, and Louis Sharp is in 10th. Van Hopen and Teofil Nile complete our top 12. The top 12, of course, which is reversed for the race that takes place tomorrow, and then they start how they qualify for the feature race on Grand Prix Sunday. We get some changes coming in for Tassanapol into Pruvazak, putting on the new set of tyres as he now gets ready to push on hard. Encouraging stuff so far for the Spanish team, and especially with Tassanapol into Pruvazak doing well at this stage, while I think Boyer will definitely want to improve and go further up along with Nicola Solo.
Yeah, Mario Boyer, who won the sprint race here last year, aiming to do well again here. There were a couple of lap times being deleted. Nicolas Solov and Nicola Lacourt have been pinged for track limits, and Ivan Dominguez has also lost his lap time for the same reason. So there are drivers just pushing a little bit too hard too soon, but even though they've set these laps, these are more banker laps, as the track has already been picked up. Tim Tramnitz now, the latest to lose his lap time for track limits. They are coming in thick and fast of these lap time deletions. We'll see what had been going on with Rafa Kamara. This is him going through the last corner. We saw this live, didn't we? I mean, where he was getting a kick of oversteer through the last sector. Yeah, you could just see stepping out, and he would have had to ease off the throttle to allow the car to just stay on the road, essentially. He won't want to be doing that too many times. But this is the thing, how the last corner has opened up a little bit. There's a little bit more space of tarmac and less curb on the outside, which the drivers would normally have to ride over. So that's going to encourage better acceleration through that last turn all the way down the pit straight, which could help with the overtaking side of things. And this is a replay of Charlie Wirtz going off the circuit and hitting the camera on the curve for good measure. So the yellow flag was for 2 separate incidents involving Wirtz and Ugo Gachukwu, and they have got some work to do to get themselves up there. I think most particularly Charlie Wirtz, who has struggled with his qualifying so far this season, hence why he's further down in the standings compared to his Trident teammates, Rafa Kamara and Noah Stromstead. Kamara 5th fastest at the moment, Stromstead in P12 and on provisional reverse grid pole for tomorrow's sprint race, and Solov just waiting for his crew to allow him to go when it is safe for him to do so. They do get rather funny, the stewards, when it comes to unsafe releases, so Campos taking no chances with that. And there we see the MP Motorsport crew from the reflection in the pit lane, just strategizing how they're going to send their drivers out. This is the more business end of the session, really, where these qualifying times are going to evolve and improve more and more and more by the minute.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating to see how it's all going to play out and who's going to be able to find the improvement. The yellow flags, they will be important as well in terms of if any driver does come across those yellows, they will have to feather out of the throttle, or they will find themselves penalized. So there's going to be lots of factors for these drivers to deal with, along with how much can you push these Pirelli tyres. Kamara's deciding to sit in the pit lane. Now, with MP Motorsport, we did see, of course, until Tim Tramnitz's lap time was deleted, he was able to get up there and in the fight. Bruno Delpino, I think, a perfect example of that. So, definitely going a little bit different can work out for drivers to avoid some of the mess and melee that we're going to get on these out laps, which is basically looks like an Indy 500 formation lap, is how these drivers usually go about things with how they are placing their cars, trying to battle over this track position at the moment.
feels more like traffic on the M1, doesn't it, Omi, with the way these drivers have been behaving
Yeah.
on circuit. But yes, it is kind of like a IndyCar style formation that these drivers are at. They're just trying to get track position, really, but they don't want to take too much life out of the tyres at the same time when they're going through the traffic. So you've got to really know when is best to go here. This is the first of the 2 prep laps that these will be on before they go again. They may have time to do a cool down lap and then go for another run again should the tyres remain together. But you can just see everyone's just weaving to get tyre temperature, but then having to slow down to avoid running into the traffic. This is why MP Motorsport have decided to let their cars go at a later time compared to the others. This is going to be a really interesting end to the session to find who has got the tyre temperature up to where it needs to be and who hasn't.
2 of our new contenders in this field are Garfias and Carrasquedo for this round, and Garfias right now in 18th position, Carrasquedo placed behind, 2 places behind as well in 20th at the moment. So it'll be interesting to follow and see how their progress gets on across this session as we come across the line then, and we continue to see the field all trying to get some better track position and making some overtakes. There is Carrasquedo, who we were just mentioning as well, and it just looks like an opening lap to the race with how tight they are, or a safety car restart with 15 minutes and 30 seconds to go on the clock. Okay, we're taking a look at a replay, and we're taking a look at Tuukka Tappinen being released by ART.
Yeah, this is what I was going. This was what it leads to what I was saying earlier. That's the number 7 being released there. I think is that Tuukka Tappinen, that, or was it James Wharton? I think it's James Wharton who veered out into the path of Christian Ho, I believe, in the pit lane. So the stewards will take note of that, because that did look like an unsafe release from ART. I would imagine it's probably going to end up being a fine, if anything, because it's not James Wharton's fault. I mean, his mirrors are only filled where, essentially, where the garages are. And it's the crew's responsibility to make sure they do release him safely without causing any drama to others. And there we see Sandro Giusti, who was on reverse grid pole in Monaco last time out, got bogged down at the start slightly and fell down to 4th place. He'll want redemption here in Barcelona. He's currently sitting in 16th place, so he needs an improvement in his lap time if he's going to get anywhere for either the sprint race on Saturday or the feature race on Sunday.
Yeah, correction, it was Lawrence Van Hoopen actually, who was the driver who was released to number 7. Apologies on that one. So yeah, he was the driver who was released, but nothing he could do too much there. It's all relying on the team at that moment as we look back to the cars, all right now prepping for their push laps, trying to find some space, and then they reduce to speed. Leon going round Le Corte, and then Leon's trying to get on with it with some overtakes as well as we make our way down through turn number 13, and then the push down to turn number 14 begins. Leon didn't want to wait behind a few more cars, he wants to get on with it, and now it's Le Corte who's going to go for it and get his foot down. So all the tactics playing out.
Yeah, so they are able to get good drive out of here, despite the fact that it is a very fast section where you ideally want to sort of go from the penultimate turn so you can carry all the momentum through the last corner and speed down to turn 1. And we are looking at one of the Red Bull juniors here. I think it has to be, is that Nicholas Solov we are looking at? There's a Trident behind him. I think it is Solov, the number 12 in the Campos, who's going through Repsol corner. And this is a vital lap for Solov, who's been in good form with victory in Monaco last week. And he'll be hoping that he can elevate himself forward. I think he is bound for Formula 2 next year, irrespective of where he ends up in Formula 3 this time around, because we know he's got the pace to do it. It's just, is there a team on the F2 grid that would be willing to have his services from 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. With Pepe Marti, of course, in that Campos team, reaching a 2nd season. Lindblad possibly linked to Formula 1 as well. Solov part of that Red Bull Academy, meaning that there's a big chance that he will continue with Campos if he can, of course, retain that Red Bull Academy link. Right now, though, his main focus is navigating his way through turn number 13, and then the 14th corner, the final one, around this circuit, and then he's going to see what lap time he's managed. Out of the final corner he goes, and he comes across the line with DRS open, and that's the lap time to get him to 4th position. Charlie Wells goes to 13th, Stenshorn improves, and he moves up to 7th place. More and more drivers cutting the beam now as Le Corte goes to 23rd. So a few lap times coming in. Tappinen still at the front. Home favourite Boyer goes to 14th. Ugo Gachukwu finds the improvement for 24th. Still not looking positive for Prema. Badoa, though, at the moment has just, as I say, that have been able to get himself to the reverse grid pole slot. Rafa Kamara going quickest of all in the first sector.
Yeah, purple in sector 1 for Kamara, 6th place as we speak, so he needs to find the lap time to keep himself up there towards where Tappanen and Inthapurvasak are. So this is vital for Kamara's weekend. Half a second up from Tappanen's lap time. Remember, the lap time that Tappanen did was from the first run. So it's expected that the lap times are going to improve from here on in, providing we don't get a red flag. Lawrence Van Herpen up into provisional pole position with James Walton in 2nd place. So it's an ART 1, 2 and 3 with Kamara about to break that trend.
Kamara about to spoil the party. Dominguez 2, 5th position. Rafa Kamara across the line, and it's nearly a 3.5 tenths improvement from the Brazilian driver at the front of the field. What can Sandro Giusti do? It looked like he was on a good lap. Tim Traminitz the 3rd. Giusti having to fight with the car as Del Pino improves to 8th. Giusti was a solid lap, and it's able to get himself just ahead of his teammate, and that is to the 2nd row of the grid in P3. Decent stuff there from Giusti. Brilliant stuff from Kamara, and Van Hopen doing well right now in 2nd place. So an interesting run coming in. Kamara, though, extending his advantage at the front, meaning he set the rest of the field quite the benchmark to beat. We always knew the circuit was going to move forward, but that's a great lap time from Kamara.
Yeah, great lap time, but above the rest by quite some way. Given it's Formula 3 standards, normally it'd be less than a tenth between the pole position driver and the driver in 2nd place. Well, Kamara's just smashed it on this latest run. Noah Strom said his teammate is in line for reverse grid pole though. But on this track, interestingly, we have seen drivers either in F2 or in F3 come out with double race victories. We saw it from Felipe Dragovic, I believe, in 2022 for MP Motorsport. I'm trying to remember if there was someone from F3 that did exactly the same thing. Probably not, but this is certainly the kind of track where providing you're in the top 12 or somewhere around that region anyway, it's possible you could win, like even from a way back, you could find your way through towards fighting at the front. This is a replay of Nicola Marinagli, who went off the circuit at turn 7 through the gravel trap and doesn't cause any problems for the other drivers there. Marinagli, who's down in 30th and last place, 2.4 seconds off the fastest time.
Yep, Tim Traminitz will look to see what he can do and what he can provide as well right at the end of this session. Most of the field returning back to the pit lane then after setting the lap times as well. Glenn continuing to support Louis Sharp in the chat as well. Louis Sharp, of course, the driver currently in 16th position. You've got Belinsky just ahead of Louis Sharp. But yes, quite a contrast to what we're used to here in this Formula 3 Championship. I remember last year we were talking about how the top 20 were separated by 0.6 of a second. Instead, this time around, it's 3.5 tenths separating 1st and 2nd place. But I think that shows you the talent of Rafa Kamara. And we've had some positive comments come out of drivers like Gabriel Bortoletto, who was talking about how his countryman is displaying the same bit of talent. And also Rafa Kamara, also we had Leonardo Fornaroli saying the exact same, how Kamara is basically doing what Bortoletto did when he arrived at this level in 2023. Kamara, of course, comes in as the reigning FRECA champion, now looking to go and win the F3 title, and next year he'll set his eyes on Formula 2 as well. So it's Kamara, Van Hopen, Giusti, Traminitz, Wharton, Tappanen, and then it's Inter-Pruvazak, Dominguez, Del Pino, Ramos, Solov, and Stromstead. That is our top 12. Stromstead has, of course, has the possession of reverse grid pole, but that's only for the moment. Still, everything is still yet to change in the final runs.
They're putting a 3rd set of tyres on for this final run, so they clearly are wanting to get rid of these shiny sort of layers, if you like, of these tyres for when they put them on for the race starts on Saturday and Sunday. But they've just got to be careful not to take too much life out of them, because these races are quite intense because of the amount of load that you need in the tyres through the corners around this racetrack, given its high-speed nature. It's going to be very, very interesting to know who will look after the tyres tomorrow and who may not so as much. But Rafa Kamara, unsurprisingly, setting the pace again ahead of Lawrence Van Herpen here.
Yeah, a really, really extraordinary qualifying session that we had for both Formula 3 and Formula 2 here 1 year ago. where it was one of the closest F2 sessions we've ever seen in terms of we had the top 3 separated by about 6 thousandths of a second, 6 milliseconds in total. That was quite ludicrous stuff 1 year ago. And then Formula 3 was also close. I momentarily mentioned it in practice. Christian Mansell taking a brilliant pole position in that one right at the end, out of thin air, out of absolutely nowhere was that lap time by Christian Mansell as well. And we're hoping that he returns back to racing soon when his health allows it. And he's a driver who was able, Tom, to get himself back in a car, and that was a big moment for him. He was really proud of that, and it's great to see him back in a race car. And hopefully, when he is able to, he can return back to the motorsport series that he loved of Formula 2.
Yeah, well, Brad Benavides has got a lot to live up to. He came in Monaco, didn't he? Or was it Imola? I think he substituted for someone. Rafa, come on, team radio.
We can wait. Then we take the risk and we see. But for me, I prefer to be more alone.
Copy. You want to be alone? This is confirmed?
Yes, confirm.
Continue on, Tom.
Well, Brad Benavides has got a lot to live up to because, yes, he does have experience in Formula 2, but it's some time since he was on the Formula 3 grid. He has been competing in the Euro Formula Open as well. So it's not like he's short of F3 experience, but in an AIX racing car, which is not the best in the field. Mind you, this is a one-spec series, so all of the cars are provided by manufacturers Dallara, and the engines are designed by Mechachrome, as far as I can remember. But these are 30 of the best drivers of the junior sort of categories, if you like, who are able to withstand the challenges of what Dallara and Mechachrome provide, to see who has the talent and who doesn't.
Yeah, that's why we can develop some powerhouses, and I think ART, they've struggled this season along with Prema, kind of like what we saw when the change happened in Formula 2. In 2024, we saw ART struggling a little bit, we saw Prema struggling quite a bit as well, if you remember, as well to the start of that season. ART starting to recover, which is great to see, with Van Hopen, Wharton and Tappinen putting 3 ARTs in the top 6, which is really, really great to see. But the Ferrari-backed driver of Rafa Kamara making his own decisions, and that's a strong thing, and that's a strong thing to be doing nice and early, Tom, of managing it how he needs to, and he can trust himself to go out there alone, be able to produce something magical. He doesn't want to be part of all of this mess. He's got a good advantage, so he's running his own thing, and he's running his own little program at the end of this session to try to secure the Aramco Pole Position Award, along with the 2 points that go with it. So 4 minutes and 15 seconds to go on the clock. It is now time to see who's going to be able to take that pole position, and it's going to be a fascinating run all the way to the end with laps at the limit. This is what we love about Formula 3 qualifying, when it comes all the way to the end.
So the schedule, it feels like, for these drivers is on the first run, do one run and then come back in. The same for the second run on the second set of tyres, and then the third run you do a run, cool down the tyres, and then go for one more run, providing the tyres are still in there. That is probably the strategy for these in this session, given the circuit's nature. But, you know, they could just say they're on their second prep laps now, so they'll be wanting to, not waste too much time if they're going to do 2 runs, because by the time you get over the line, you want at the very, very minimum, you want 3 minutes, but the problem is they're not going to have time to do 2 runs, so I can imagine this is going to be 1 run for most of these, and to ensure that they get the perfect lap that they want, because these are essentially going to be the prime lap times here, and if you get it all wrong, you're going to lose out big time.
Yep, you cannot afford to lose out. You must be in the top 12 to be in contention in terms of fighting for wins and podiums. If you are to be outside of that, then you're going to need a lot of chaos, a lot of Formula 3 chaos, which is possible, but it makes your life a lot more hard, and there is no mandatory pit stops when it comes to the races. Glenn St. Kamara way out in front, and he'll look to try and maintain that one as well as we make our way out of the final corner. Everyone continuing to trundle around. Trident, watch on and look to see whether their man is going to be able to take pole position. Van Hopen, the unsafe release has been noted. We were talking about that earlier on as well. But yes, Trident are going to hope to try and maybe get their other 2 drivers absolutely in contention at the same time. Stromstead currently on reverse grid pole as it stands, and then right now at this moment we have Charlie Rose once again down, and that's one main thing Tom, that he needs to work on his qualifying, because even if you can have good pace in the race, it's a long ladder to climb to then get yourself in contention.
Well, they've all got work to do to ensure they are inside the top 12 to give themselves a chance of a strong result out of this. It is possible to do it from 13th or 14th, but life will be harder. These are essentially sprint races, except the fact that the feature race is slightly longer, as that is where the bigger chunk of points get given out. Nicholas Solov on a flying lap. He won't have time to do a second run, so this is it. This is teeth for nail, the bit between your teeth stuff. If you can just find those extra 10th or 2, that could be the difference between being on pole and being down just outside the top 12.
It is 1/10 away. That is the first sector from Nicholas Solov currently, and that is compared to our current pole man, Rafa Kamara, who's been able to set a 1 minute 28.761. We've got over a minute to go in this qualifying session, and we're looking to see who is going to be getting that Aramco pole position award. Carrasquedo making his way through right now, the opening sector. Nicholas Solov all over the curb, but making sure that he keeps it within the white lines and on the attack, not losing any time. DRS wide open once again, and we're going to get a sector 2 time from the Bulgarian driver to see where he is. It is still in contention to possibly get himself onto the front row. Carrasquedo is down by about 0.7 of a second. He will try and aim to get into the top 12. Nicholas Solov standing on the power. What is this third sector going to be? Traffic, you'll hope, is completely out of the way and goes in his favour. Kamara just starting a lap directly ahead. Nicholas Solov out of turn number 14, stands on the power. Let's see whether he can improve to the front row. The Red Bull Junior makes his way across the line, and he does go to second position, directly behind Carrasquedo. Lost time in the third sector. He improves to 17th. Home favourite Mari Boya goes to 8th. Santiago Ramos improves to 4th position. There's going to be a late response from Kamara coming in, but can anyone provisionally beat the time? That is going to be critical to see. Belinsky to 7th position. The checkered flag is flying. Louis Sharp improves to reverse grid pole at the moment. Zagazet is in 22nd, and we're just looking to see whether anyone else can find any sort of lap time as we momentarily watch Tuukka Tappinen making his way through. Can he get himself in contention? The driver, who currently has 9th position, goes to 6th. What about Lawrence Van Hooper not having the best of second sectors as he sends it across the line? He'll still be in 3rd.
Yeah, so he stays in 3rd place, does Van Hopen. Solid up to a brilliant 2nd. James Watson does not improve his uptime. Teofil Niall up to 4th place. He's pulled that lap out of nowhere, really, the Van Amersfoort Racing driver, so he's done well. Nicola Lacorte in 23rd position, as we see Jose Garfias, one of the debutants this weekend, finding himself up to 22nd. Noel Leon on reverse grid pole. He found some time on that last effort, but what can Tim Chumnitz do?
That'll be interesting. And Noah Leon, as we see Belinsky now get there, because we've got an improvement from Dominguez. GST's in 6th. Tim Traminix will try get himself higher up the order. What can the Red Bull Junior do as he sends it across the line, and he improves 1 position to P10. And as it stands, it's Roman Belinsky who has the reverse grid pole for tomorrow's race. Rafa Kamara still at the front. No one could challenge his lap time, and it's going to be for the 2nd time he'll get the Aramco pole position award, and he's also going to be getting the 2 points with it as well, and that's 2 poles in this triple header for him. And he continues what he managed with a pole in Australia, with a pole in Bahrain. He'll head over to the support series paddock, and he'll do so as the pole sitter once again in FIA Formula 3, and he'll share the front row with Nicholas Solov. A great qualifying session, and Kamara didn't even need a lap at the end. No one was able to challenge his lap time that he was able to set earlier on. Brilliant stuff from him as we review the replays.
Yeah, this is one of the Van Amersfoorts. I think that's, is that Santiago? Oh, no, it's actually further behind. That's Garfias in the car.
You get a penalty for that, Lacote. He just hit me from the side.
It had been getting close at many points throughout the session to contact, and there we go. Gerard G finds himself in 30th. One of the reasons why is he was off the road, and that was a trip to the gravel trap which would not have helped him at all. Now let's take a look at Tuukka Tappinen, him making his way through, and he was all over the curve, very nearly losing the car. Lucky to still keep that pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, but luckily he's still in P9, so he's got a chance to go for it in the sprint race tomorrow to happen in one of the highly regarded drivers in the field. And we also see a replay from Taz in the purple side running wide and costing him time. He could have been in the top 12, you know, Taz in the purple side. Could have been another one of those in the fray for a strong result in the sprint race. But it's been all about Rafa Kamara, unstoppable at the moment.
Congratulations, my friend. He's another pole position. Well done. Well done. Impressive.
Good job.
The Brazilian bounces back after a bit of a disappointment in Monaco. After losing the feature race win at the end in Imola, it is back to the front for Kamara, and he'll look to try win the feature race on Grand Prix Sunday once again. And of course, Kamara, he'll be going from 12th. He'll have to try and make some overtakes, but it's a circuit, Tom, which you can overtake in Formula 3. So if he is able to make his way through and navigate his way through nice and cleanly, possibly something like a podium could be on if we do have a typical Formula 3 race, which has safety cars and usual drama that is slotted in throughout the session.
Kamara.
Well done, mate. It is P3. Let's go, mate. That's the performance that I want to have. Let's go. Lovely job. Lovely. That's a good comeback for the first run.
I mean, I was mentioning in practice, I momentarily read out a little quote in terms of from Lawrence Van Hoopen after his podium in Monaco that he was going to try be in contention and he was going to try and get another positive weekend, and a third place is a great way to start that before the two races coming up this weekend.
I mean, he's done super this weekend so far, Lawrence Van Hoopen. And, well, let's see what he can do tomorrow when it comes to racing towards the top. He will start from 10th on the grid for the sprint race, 3rd in the feature on Sunday. Roman Belinsky on reverse grid pole alongside Martini Estenchon. That's going to be a really interesting run down to turn 1 tomorrow morning. We're seeing lap times being deleted, actually, and I can tell you now, Roman Belinsky has lost his reverse grid pole. Track limits deprived Inomi.
Well, there we go. Formula 3 drama continues after the checkered flag. Roman Belinsky will not be the driver to lead us away tomorrow, and he's going to find himself down the order, and that is unfortunate for the driver, who will now go from 26th for both races this weekend. He was looking at the pole position seat for tomorrow's sprint race down to turn 1. Instead, it's going to be 26th for the sprint, for the feature, and that was track limits. Really unfortunate stuff for him, and now his eyes and attention will turn to how he manages it and how he tries to make himself up the order, which is possible. He'll try definitely go for some points, especially on Grand Prix Sunday, but that has to hurt for Roman Belinsky. Complete different exam question put forward to him as the fans in the grandstands continue to watch on. Now, of course, about to endure a Formula 2 qualifying session as well, which is going to be coming up.
James Wharton on reverse grid pole as a consequence of Belinsky's track limit violation. And, well, he's yet to win in this championship as well as James Wharton. And he's got a chance to change that tomorrow. Noel Leon, 13th. What must he be thinking at this moment in time, knowing he came so close to getting that reverse grid pole? But, you know, Prema, they've got some work to do, haven't they? I mean, not either of their drivers are in the top 12 again. I don't know what's going on.
New car regulations once again, like it was in F2 by the looks of things. They've not been able to quickly get used to this new machine. We saw it in Formula 2. We're now seeing the same effect coming in Formula 3 for that Prema team. It's been going horribly wrong for a driver, especially like Noel Leon, who was a big promise coming into the season after showing glimpses. He was definitely going to be one of your drivers which you'd possibly throw in as championship contention. Lots of rookies in this field, so you wouldn't of course put their names immediately forward. You don't know how it's going to work out, how it's going to click in Formula 3 for them. So if you're looking at experienced drivers like Solov, Leon were put forward, and Tim Traminitz as well in there to possibly one of our contenders for the title. And well, Solov is delivering to that. Unfortunately, due to the Prema car, Noel Leon is not being able to produce that and come close to that as well. But a fantastic Formula 3 qualifying session, and a session which has been topped once again by Rafa Kamara, who continues his domination to some degree in Formula 3. Okay, well, we're going to quickly run you through our results then in this Formula 3 qualifying session, then we'll grab final thoughts. Rafa Kamara ended fastest, and then it was Nikola Solov in second place. Lawrence Van Hoopen is going to be starting third for the futurist. Teofil Nal, it was in fourth, a great result from him. Santiago Ramos in fifth, GSD in sixth, then it was Dominguez, Stormstead, Tappinen, Tim Traminitz completing our top 10. Stenshorn just finished ahead of James Walton. Those two will share the front row for the sprint tomorrow, but they're in 11th and 12th for the feature race on Sunday. Then it was Leon, Boyer, into Pruvazak, Woisen, Sharp was Del Pino, and Brad Benavides completing our top 20. Just outside of that was Brando Badoa, Christian Ho, Ugo Gachukwu, Jose Garfias, Nicola Lacorte. There could be an investigation with him possibly. Roman Belinsky lost his lap time, and that sees him drop all the way to 26th. And then we had Jesse Carrasquedo on debut in 27th, Nicola Marinangeli in 28th, and then Mattia Zagazzetta in 29th, and Gerard G, who went off the road, meaning he could not set a proper lap time at the end, and he'll go from the back for both races this weekend. Well, Tom, interesting Formula 3 session, and what's your final thoughts before we go sprinting tomorrow?
I've enjoyed that session, and now it's going to come down to who will have the speed in the race. Can we see Rafa Kamara continuing that consistency in the feature race? It's going to be entertaining to see if he can actually put in some racecraft, because I don't feel like we've seen some racecraft from Rafa Kamara during the course of this season. It feels to me like the majority of the points he's been getting have been from winning the feature races. So if we can see him come through the field nicely, that throws another element in there in terms of his racecraft. But it doesn't mean to say he's not good with his racecraft. We saw it during his days in either Freca or Italian Formula 4 that he was competing in. But I'd like to see if he can do it on the Formula 3 stage on a Formula race weekend.
Absolutely. Well, brilliant stuff. That wraps up Formula 3. Next up, single greatest one-make championship on Earth, Formula 2, coming up with its qualifying session. And we will see you in a few moments for that. But for Formula 3, it will be time for the sprint race. We cannot wait for the battle down to turn number 1 to see who is going to take the sprint race victory. We'll see you then. Goodbye.